too. Just be like, hey,
Yeah,
we start
I
like
just
5 minutes before I. Yeah, there we go. I got a notification saying you started recording, so that's perfect.
okay. All right, cool.
So just to catch the teacher up if she watches this, I guess, we just discussed the first question of our different statuses, and now we're on to the second question of which ones are ascribed and which ones are achieved. So anyway, so achieved would be the one, or ascribed would be the ones that are like born into, or like yeah. So like being a daughter, a sister, things like that. I'm trying to think of other ones that are other than just like relationships, I guess. But then achieved ones would be like a friend, a boss, student, things like that.
Yeah. Hello, Cameron.
Hi there, guys. Sorry I'm late.
Okay. As long as you're here. All right.
We made it this time.
That's cool. Anyone else want to go? No? Okay. Basically the same thing that Emma has, what Emma said is basically what I have. Daughter, female, sister, those are ascribed. And I guess all of the other ones that we pick up along the way, student, internet user, neighbor, those are all achieved. Okay, so the next discussion question is, what status is on your list, if any would not have made it on your list a year ago? Anyone else want to take that?
For me, it would be like a college student, I guess, because I'm a freshman, so like I guess that could be one, like a college student or a freshman or something like that. That I would have had a year ago.
Okay. All right, cool. Anyone else?
I don't know if this applies.
Go ahead, Cameron.
All right. Okay. I don't know if this applies to anyone else, but I guess job titles work as well. I started my job not too long ago, so optometric tech, I guess that's my job, but student applies as well. I'm sure there's plenty more. That's like all that's coming to mind right now, though.
All right. What about you, Chelsea? You can go now.
Well, I was gonna say, so like my calling in the church, I've never had before. It's my first time. But the thing is the question asks, would not have major list, right? So like I guess I could have had it, but I've never had it. So I don't know if that falls under the same.
I think it does, because it's a status that you didn't have at that time. So it should be, it's one of your achieved statuses, I think.
Yeah.
So that should be, yeah. What about 5 years ago? For me, it'll be student, because I don't think that, no, I hadn't started 5 years ago. So a student.
I would say employee too. I was an employee, I'm not anymore, but I definitely wasn't employed 5 years ago. So.
Okay, cool.
A driver.
Hey, congratulations. Okay.
You could say adult in my case.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Anyone else?
A Texas Roadhouse roadie. Oh, sorry, Chelsea.
Oh, no, go ahead, Emma. Go ahead.
I just want everyone to know that I am a certified Texas Roadhouse roadie. Like, I have cooked in Texas Roadhouse's kitchen.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice. Chelsea, you were gonna add something?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it's hard because I'm like literally, I don't know, I could not think of anything 5 years ago because I'm like the same. Because I started college 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
I understand.
Like, yeah, it's hard. So it was hard to think of something for that.
Okay. All right, cool. Anybody else before we move on to the next question?
I would say for me, I wasn't a missionary 5 years, but well, a missionary with the tag, I should say. But yeah, that's one thing that I gained, I guess, in the last 5 years.
Nice. Alrighty. Okay, cool. Okay, so the next thing that we're supposed to do is compare our statuses and see what statuses that each of us hold that would cause a role conflict if we have that status in addition to ones we have on our list. I think we basically all have this, well, except for Cameron. We basically have all the same statuses.
Yeah, I think sister was dropped a couple times, and I definitely don't have that one, and it could cause some problems.
Okay, yeah. Other than that, any on the list that you guys think would cause a problem? Role conflict?
I wonder if like just like different jobs. Like I don't know what jobs people have, and like if some people have jobs that like maybe conflict with my like other roles, like as a student or whatever. So I don't know about that.
Right, because I was actually thinking like mother and student. I wondered if that would be like conflicting roles, if they would think of it like that for sociology, but I wasn't sure. It was just because those are the only two things really that I have on my list that I think could conflict, but who knows. But student and employee, because everybody had, we all have that one. We all have those. What do you guys think? Okay, what about missionary and student? Because Brittany says she was or is a missionary. Would those be conflicting?
I guess it would be conflicting for me. Because I was married last year or this year, but like last year was like I was missionary age, I guess. And so like I guess that would be conflicting for me if I were to be a missionary right now, you know, because like I am a year married and it's like, you know, that just it doesn't work out that way. You know, you go on a mission first and then you get married, or you go when you're like together, older, whatever. But like right now in my life, I can't be a missionary, you know.
Okay. But okay. Anyone else want to add something else?
This might be like, I don't know if this like really goes in line with the question, but it might be a stretch, but I was just thinking like in our group right now, only one of us can be the leader, right? Because if we were all trying to be the leader, we would like conflict with each other.
That's
right?
true.
If we were trying to get everyone to follow like our own leads, like everyone would, it would be chaos. So there's a reason why there's one person in charge, which is Tessa this time, you know, and we're all participants, I guess.
Okay. But isn't it like one person having two roles that would conflict? So then maybe one the leader can't be a participant. Those two roles would conflict, basically.
Yeah, we couldn't be it at the same time.
We couldn't. Okay.
That one might actually be more along the lines of role strain, just because it's like almost the same thing as being the leader versus the participator, because you still are like expected to participate. So it's kind of this conflicting demands within the same kind of idea.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, that makes more sense. All right. Okay. So next question. Which of these statuses on your list? Okay. Which of these statuses on your personal list is most prestigious and least prestigious? Who's gonna take the lead on that? And what did you say, Cameron?
Favorite son.
Are you an only son?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Anyone else? Most prestigious? I think mine is mother.
For me, mine is like friend, because I take a lot of pride in being like a good friend, or having like good friends around me. And like if someone's like I don't know, like always there for you, like kind of like rubs off and you're like, oh, like I want to be that person too. So like I always like try to be like, I don't know, like the best friend. Like I always try to be the best friend out of everyone. That sounds bad, but I take a lot of pride in being a good person and being a good friend and always being there for people that I'm close with. And so I guess that could be like the most prestigious. I don't really know what my least prestigious is. I'd have to think about that one, but
I think we all do, truly. Anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah, I would say, well, I put like, I know it's kind of cliche, but like I put daughter of God, like as my most prestigious.
That's a good one.
And then for my least prestigious, like I just kind of put acquaintance. Like if I'm like just like being an acquaintance with someone, I don't know if that's like accurate, but like that's all I could think of because like that was on my list, and so I was like, out of all the ones.
Okay, I think that's a good one. That's a good one to be in the least prestigious, just an acquaintance. Anyone else? No? Okay, so we move on. This time we have to put the group list together and see what is the most prestigious out of the list. So maybe we should all recap our lists and see, because I don't think that I remember all of them and I didn't write it down. So do you guys want to go again with your list? Maybe just throw in there, just throw it in there, which you think, if you think that yours is what is the most prestigious on your list? And then we'll make a decision based on those. So each person will say the most prestigious on their list. How about that?
Oh, most prestigious on my list. I was gonna say I think most prestigious out of all the ones I've heard so far would be mother. I don't know. I think that one just has a special ranking.
Okay. All right. So I hear what you're saying. Okay. What else? Anyone else?
After thinking about my list and everything, I think that Chelsea's being a daughter or child of God is definitely most prestigious over all of mine.
Yep. I think so too. I actually like missionary too, so I think that's really good.
I like daughter of God, or like child or son or daughter of heavenly parents, or child of heavenly parents. I don't know, since we have Cameron here and he's not a girl.
Yeah, can't help without it. All right, cool.
Anyone? Could we? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Could we just change that? Could we change that to saying like disciples of Jesus Christ? You know, because that could be a status too, if we're talking about like, well, like religious sense. But
I like those. I like that. All right. Anyone else? Okay, so on the list, the potential list is, I guess, mother, missionary, and disciples of Christ. So which of those three do we think is the most prestigious?
I think I would vote like the disciple of Jesus Christ / child of God, whatever.
All right.
Because like we wouldn't be, first of all, we wouldn't be like missionaries if we didn't know or come to realize that we were disciples of Christ and like daughters or sons of God, you know. And we wouldn't be mothers if it wasn't for him, you know what I mean? So I don't know, I feel like that just comes first.
All right. Everybody in agreement with that? All right. Okay, so I guess our most prestigious is disciples of Christ. Okay, what about the least prestigious on our list? Our combined list. Anybody want to throw out their least prestigious again and just let us make a decision on that, or
I would probably say students, just because it's fairly common. A lot of us do it. And I mean, it's a stepping stone. It's to achieve something higher. So I'd say student would be like the least prestigious, and then you go from there.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to add? I mean, we said acquaintance was least prestigious on a few lists.
I think my being a Roadhouse roadie status is definitely the least prestigious.
Okay. Those are the contenders: student, acquaintance, and Roadhouse roadie. Anything else?
In the book, I read part of it, and it talked about how a status could be like a consumer, so like somebody who like buys a product. I feel like that's pretty like a low bar. Like you don't have to do much to be a consumer of anything, even lower than Roadhouse roadie, I think.
What about IG user or Twitter user? Because I actually have that on my list. I just never read it out. What do you guys think about that one?
A what? Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Twitter, IG user, Instagram user.
I think
I thought
that
that kinda-
any, oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Lily.
I think that like any like really social media status is probably like not really that important. Unless, I mean, it depends on really what you're sharing. Like you could be like sharing like things about the gospel. Like you can devote like your social media platforms to sharing things about the gospel. But if it's like you're posting like, oh, just like, I don't know, worldly things, I guess we could say, then I don't think that status is
So
as
that's
like
relative
prestigious.
to what? Okay. So I guess they did say that statuses are relative too. So yeah. All right. So what were you gonna say, Chelsea?
I was just gonna say like Instagram or like Facebook or whatever, like social media. I feel like that could kind of go along with consumer because like you're consuming like in a way like the social media, and so that could kind of go like hand in hand. And I agree that it's kind of like a lower status.
Okay. All right. So that's a list. We're adding anything to the list before we vote? Okay, so we have student, acquaintance, Roadhouse roadie, and consumer. Which do we think of those four is the least prestigious?
I kind of think consumer, like it is super low bar. Like everyone is a consumer of something, no matter who you are, where you live. Like everyone's a consumer of something, but that's also important because you have to eat, you have to like live still. You know what I'm saying? Like there's some things you consume that that are necessary for life. And so I still think it's Roadhouse roadie because you don't have to live, like you can live without that. Most people do. Everybody does.
Okay, I think I agree with Emma. Anyone else want to weigh in?
I mean, if we're making it more specific and saying like specifically consumer of social media, I do think that's below Roadhouse roadie. Just because, well, in my opinion, social media is not that important. You can live your life, your whole life without having an Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever junk, like you'd be fine. So I don't know. But you have to work, like you have to have a job. And as low as Roadhouse roadie is, still a job. You still got paid to do it. So that's the plus.
All right. So you think consumer or social media, okay, user. Anyone else? Anyone else have an opinion?
I think I agree with Brittany. I said social media consumers probably
Okay.
free. So it's not even like a regular consumer. It's kind of like a
Okay.
free
All
order.
right. So we're all agreed on that one then. Social media consumer. Alrighty. Okay. Okay, the next one, the next discussion question. Can you identify and describe any status inconsistencies on our list? Anyone want to take that?
I don't really get that question.
I guess on our list of statuses, I guess 2. You have to compare 2, right? I think that's what it is. Status inconsistency.
So the
Well,
way how I understand the question is that you have a status where on one hand it's good and it's positive, but on the other hand it's negative. And an example of that I think would be like being a college student. You're getting education, which is good, and you're furthering your abilities and your knowledge. But what's negative about that is that you maybe sacrifice a lot of your time or your money, even depending, I guess, on where you go, or even just at all, it's negative because of how much sacrifice you're giving, like 5 to 8 years of your life, whatever, 2 years, whatever it is, paying tuition, those are all kind of negative things. Those are hard. Like being a teacher. This is an example I got off the internet. Being a teacher is good because you're teaching other children and you're being an example to them and sharing knowledge, but it's bad because of the low pay. So it's like conflicting that way. Does that make sense?
Well, I was looking at the textbook. Oh, I'm sorry. No, go ahead. I was just about to say the textbook example.
Oh,
so you can
okay.
Well,
Right.
I was just gonna say that it's the way that I understand it from reading the definition in the textbook is just that you're looking at like the way that you've ranked yourself in the social like classes that you put yourself in and how those clash. So like
Right.
in the textbook it talks about like
Teacher
somebody who's like very,
bartender.
very skilled, but someone who is also some like lower class. Like it says like they're a really skilled welder, but they also are a Walmart worker. So like they're like kind of on opposite ends, right? You have to be really skilled, have a degree to do one, but basically anyone can do the other. So I think it's comparing like your higher statuses to lower.
Right. So I think what Emma described was the strain. I think role strain. And what you described, Brittany, I think is what we're looking for. So it's any 2 statuses that you have that will kind of like cancel out each other. They're like on opposite end of the what's that word? Prestigious scale. So
like just throwing out like examples here, like we could say like daughter of God and then Texas Roadhouse Roadie ?
yeah. yeah, something like that. Yeah, does anyone have anything on their list that clash like that? I kind of don't.
I wonder, this could be, I don't know. So my younger sister, she's part of the LGBTQ community. So to me, being a sister, but also being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ clashes. And that's sometimes hard. So I feel like that could be an example of like inconsistency, maybe.
Okay. Anyone else? Before we move on. All right. Cool. Okay, so of all the statuses on your list, which one would you identify as your master status? I think that is the one that describes you, that is the most prestigious for you, I guess. Which is the one that you walk into a room and everybody will see immediately? they can identify you by. I'd say female.
Yeah, that's what I'd say too. I think also like my age. Well, actually, I don't know. A lot of people think that I'm 18, but I'm actually 23, so maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, child of God, child of God, I think is one that we could say. Walk into a room, and I mean, we're all children of Christ. We're all children of God, so there's that. But I don't know. Female for me, I don't think that's the same for Cameron, but
I think gender is very universal. Like you walk into a room with any group or culture of like people, and they can like identify you that way. Like that is your master status. You know, I think that being a child of God can be a master status among specifically members of the church, just because that's culture.
I think so too.
I think also that if you're just looking at the individual and like you're saying for yourself what your master status is based solely on what you think it could be child of God. But yeah, if you were to like universally, like if people were to see you as something, like gender is probably the most obvious among those people.
What about ethnicity? Because I think that's pretty noticeable too. You walk into a room and you know what ethnic background you have.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, like, with your example, like you walk into a room, like what's the first thing that people notice? I was going to say ethnicity because like for me, I live in like the most white community, I swear. Like there's no black people here. And so like you walk into a room and like, yeah, like female or boy or whatever, that's like really noticeable. But like for me, it's like people are like, oh, like no one's gonna be like, oh yeah, the girl over there. They're gonna be like, oh, the black girl over there, you know? And so I feel like that's like my master status personally.
Okay.
I think you have a good point, Lily, because like when someone says, oh, what did they look like? You're like, okay, well, he or she is tall and white or Asian, or, you know, like they always, when you describe someone, you almost always include that. But I guess you could say you include gender too. But I do feel like you say skin color before you say gender.
Yeah, I think so too. Is that it? Are you guys, so you have anything else to add on that specific?
I probably agree with gender because that was one of the first things I noticed when I got in the call. I was like, oh, great. I'm the only guy here.
That's the first thing we noticed too. All right. So the last question, did we all choose the same master status? I think we were all quite, we were all okay with being female, but we added a few after. So in our group, not Cameron, our master status basically would be female, the majority of us. If we walk in anywhere, what do you think?
We can say female, or we could just like do gender in general, like, you know, that whole like diversity, like, you know, walking into the room like, oh, she's female, or oh, or he's male, whatever. Anything, you know, gender.
Okay. I think the last question is, how do you think these master statuses influence your interaction as a group? Do you think they even influence our interaction?
At least in my case, I don't think it's really much more of an influence as it is like an identifier. Like I don't look into a room and say like, oh, there's a bunch of girls here. They're gonna be like this and this and this. More like, oh, there's a bunch of girls here. Let's see how they are. Let's go talk to them and figure out how they're like.
Okay.
I think that if I were among strangers and I had a problem, I would most likely go to someone of my own gender You know what I'm saying? Like I couldn't quite explain to you why like that was. I just feel more comfortable like me personally talking to another like woman. You know what I'm saying? And maybe it's the same for men or whatever. Maybe children. Maybe children prefer talking to children. You know, I don't, it's just that's what I've noticed. That's how it influences.
Okay.
I mean, I would say it does affect the way you interact with people. Like within family, like the way I talk to my sister is different than the way I talk to my brothers. Or like if I'm in a group of people, like the way I would talk to like my best friend who's a girl versus like my other good friend that's a guy, it's going to be different. So I do think that it does affect the way that you word things, the way that you talk to people, like the way you interact. I would say it makes an impact.
Okay. But do you think that it influenced how we interact as a group? All 7 of us here? Our master statuses, do you think they have any influence on how we are interacting?
I would say no, but I also don't know if anything changed the minute I got on the call. So
No. I would lean towards no too, but I don't know. Anyone else on the way? This is the last question though. So after this, we're done.
I was thinking, this is a little off topic, but before we're done, I wanted to discuss if there's any difference or if similarities with status and identity, because I was actually thinking about like the gender thing and how like the LGBTQ community that's been going on, you know, and how like people are placing themselves like they're changing their identities and how that's like influencing our world today. So even though like among this group, like we're talking about gender and that's our like master status that we've identified here, I feel like it's really common in the world today that people are trying to identify their genders and like you know what I'm saying? I don't know quite exactly how to lead with this, but like I wanted to talk about it. Like how does that influence our status and identity, and is status and identity the same or are they different?
I would think they're different. How you identify is personal and it's relative, I think. But your status, I think, is something that is innate. It's what you are. You cannot be something. You can't identify as a 12-year-old if you're a 13-year-old, if you know what I mean. I personally don't think that they are the same thing. I think they're separate.
I think identity.
The identity is basically what you want others to see you as and not necessarily what you are, I guess.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing. Like an identity is like a self-perception, is what you see you as, versus a status or a role, which is something that society and other people see you as.
Yeah.
Sort of a self versus others type of deal.
Right, because I think in the chapter there was a discussion about sex being a status, where there was some discussion about sex change, people who have sex change, and whether or not they were seen as the other sex for their status. And I think they're saying no. At the end of the day, you are what, you know, XY or XX chromosome. So it's either one or the next.
Well, there was like another thing in the book. It talks about, you know, we talked about ascribed status versus achieved status. So like, could you argue that something that like, would people have different perspectives in on ascribed versus achieved? Because you could go and say, okay, well, gender is an ascribed status because you're born, like you said, with X or Y or whatever it is. But then people could come back and say, oh no, but this is what I am. I achieved that status. So maybe identity can just like play into that of like an achieved status, like what you like, your identity could be your achieved status, if we're talking about it that way.
Okay.
I appreciate all those comments. I like especially Cameron, what you said about self versus like others, how your identity is how you view yourself, your status is how others see you, recognize you, right? But then again, Brittany, your argument that, you know, maybe people could put that to an argument where, you know, maybe it is achieved versus ascribed, especially with sex change. People, you know, they weren't born with that. That was an achieved thing. Like they could argue that. So anyway, I found it, and like I was thinking too, and not just that community and things like that, but also things like autism. Is autism, people born with autism, is that a status or is that an identity? Do people identify those people as an autistic person, or are they just, is it just an ascribed status of, oh, they have autism? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I don't know if they would like want to be said like I identify as autism, you know, like, and so it would seem like it would be more like a status, but like also what other people are saying is like status and identity can be very similar, and so I wonder if it just depends on like how that person views it.
This is a good discussion. Anyone else want to weigh in?
Or like, just to throw another one out there, like fat, like fat people, like, not to be insensitive, but like, do people identify themselves as fat, or is that just a status? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a bunch of these that are like popping in my head, like,
But
dang,
remember,
just to throw it out there.
He said that there are statuses that will change. So I guess you achieve certain status as you go along, certain things, and then you change from those. I don't think. Okay, I guess on the there's a lot of similarities between statuses and identity, I guess, but I still think, like, I still am gonna lean towards what Cameron says, as in like identity is how you see yourself, and the status is how society and it's how you're seen by society. So yeah, if you're fat, you're a fat person. That's a status that would be, you know, one of your statuses at that time, because you don't have to be fat all the time. But do people identify as fat? I don't know. I'm asking.
I don't know. I'm not sure if that would, I mean, because the definition in the book talks about that sociologists identify status as the social position that a person occupies in a society. I don't think being fat necessarily is like a position someone occupies in society, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know if that connects like probably in that way. But
I don't know.
So you're proposing that there is a possibility that being fat could be an identity, that it doesn't hold a position in society. It's more just what a person views themselves as, kind of thing.
Yes.
I don't think that fat really fits into the category of an identity, because I oh my gosh, an identity is what makes you like who you are, and I don't feel like, oh well, you know, maybe I'm not eating my own words. I might have to rethink what I'm about to say, because I feel like an identity, like yeah, it's like your own personal like intuition, like, you know, this is who I am, this is what makes me me, and then like other people also putting into that. But I feel like other people like putting information in fits more on like status. I guess it just depends on like where you're standing, like, you know, like if you're like maybe like struggling with oh my gosh, like if you're like self-conscious or something, and you know people are like, oh yeah, like she's fat or he's fat, like that's who you are, that's how you identify, and that be like, that could be a struggle for you. You're like, that's not what I identify as. But then like that could also be like status, because like people are, you know, I don't really know how to explain what's going on inside my head. I might have to rethink that.
I think Lily's heading in the right direction. I think fat is more of a trait, rather than a status, because it's something that people notice, but it's not like a position or something that like defines you. It's just a trait. And some people will take it a little bit too far and then make it an identity. Like you've heard the saying, like someone has something that makes it their entire personality. I feel like it's something along those lines where it's more of a trait first, and like it kind of can expand from there.
I think you're both right. I mean, I think it could either be I mean, some people are born just thick, you know, and they just can't lose it. Like some people that it just legit is there. You can't avoid that sometimes. But then other times there's like the TV show like The Biggest Loser, and then like how much they weigh does become their status, you know. Like I think it totally just depends on the context, the situation. I don't know.
So then we could just say that status is defined in each situation, and that the reason statuses can change is because we're put into different social situations where we're with different groups of people.
Okay. Alrighty. Does anybody have anything else to add? No? So we can end this class. I think we have to figure out who's gonna lead for the next class. Who wants to take point? Anyone?
I think that we meet 6 times, if I'm not, or if I'm, I don't know, I might be incorrect. But if we all just took one, then we'd all just do it once. If you guys are okay with that.
When is the next time we're meeting?
Looks like week 8. I think it might
it's
be
every
Halloween,
other week.
actually.
Oh, yeah.
What? I think it's Halloween because I think week 8, is the next one. Not so this is week 6. So
all right,
on Halloween.
All right. So, all right. I guess we can figure out later on who want to take point. We don't have to do it now if you guys are not prepared.
I can do it. I should be fine. I was just checking my work schedule, but I can do it.
All right. So week 8, same Monday, 5 p.m. All right. All right. Thanks, guys. So I'll get this sent into the professor. I'll send this in. I think I'm supposed to post this in. All right, cool. Everybody have a good week. Bye.
Thanks.